The impossible task. The warning klaxons echoed through the corridors of Mining Station, Kepler 442 bits, their harsh wailing cutting through the usual hum of machinery. Engineer Maya Chen pressed her palm against the vibrating wall of the maintenance tunnel, feeling the deep tremors that shouldn't exist in a properly functioning facility. Something was very wrong with the heart of their operation. Maya, get to the reactor chamber immediately. Commander Aldrich Voss's voice crackled through her comm unit. The urgency in his tone made her stomach clench. She had never heard the veteran commander sound worried before. Maya scrambled through the narrow maintenance passages, her toolkit bouncing against her hip. At 28, she was the youngest senior engineer on the station, having earned her position through sheer determination and an uncanny ability to fix things that others deemed broken beyond repair. Growing up in the industrial wastelands of Earth, where nothing worked properly and everything had to be jury-rigged to function, had given her skills that textbook-trained engineers simply couldn't match. The reactor chamber's massive doors stood open, revealing a scene of controlled chaos. Dozens of technicians surrounded the towering cylindrical structure at the room's center, their faces illuminated by the pulsing crimson light emanating from within. The ancient ethereal quantum reactor, a marvel of alien engineering that had powered their mining operation for 3 years, was dying. Report, Maya called out as she approached Dr. Sarah Kim, the station's chief scientist and her longtime mentor. Dr. Kim's face was pale, her usually steady hands trembling as she consulted her tablet. The quantum field containment is destabilizing. We're seeing cascade failures across all primary systems. If we don't stabilize it within 6 hours, the entire reactor will undergo critical meltdown. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. The reactor didn't just power their mining equipment and life support systems. It was the only thing keeping 50,000 colonists alive on this hostile world. Without it, their atmospheric processors would fail, their hydroponic farms would die, and their defensive shields would collapse, leaving them exposed to the planet's lethal radiation storms. What about the ethereal engineers? Maya asked, though she already suspected the answer. That's the problem, Commander Voss said, approaching them with heavy steps. Behind him walked a figure that seemed to shimmer and shift, as if it were made of crystallized starlight. Zethka, the ethereal representative assigned to their station, moved with the fluid grace of its species, but Maya could sense something different in its demeanor today. Zethka's voice resonated directly in their minds, bypassing their ears entirely. We have attempted repairs on 17 similar reactors across the galaxy over the past 2 centuries. All efforts have resulted in failure. The quantum biomatrix technology was created by our ancestors who possessed knowledge we have since lost. Maya stared at the alien being. The ethereals were ancient, with lifespans measured in millennia. Their technology was so advanced that humans barely understood its basic principles. If they couldn't fix their own creation, what hope did anyone else have? There has to be something we can do, Maya said, refusing to accept defeat. What exactly happens during these failures? Zethka's form flickered slightly, a sign of agitation among its species. The quantum field matrix becomes unstable when certain bioorganic components begin to decay. Our engineers have tried every documented procedure, every traditional approach. The technology requires a perfect harmony between mechanical systems and living quantum organisms that we no longer fully comprehend. Maya felt something click in her mind. Living quantum organisms. She had studied theoretical bioquantum mechanics during her advanced training, though it was considered mostly academic speculation among human scientists. But growing up on Earth's industrial wastelands had taught her that the most effective solutions often came from understanding how broken systems adapted to survive. "Can I examine the reactor's internal structure?" she asked. Dr. Kim looked alarmed. "Maya, the radiation levels inside the containment field are lethal. Even with full protective gear, extended exposure would be fatal. How long can a human survive in there with maximum protection?" Zethka's mental voice carried a note of surprise. perhaps 30 minutes before cellular damage becomes irreversible. But that is insufficient time to understand the complexity of the systems involved. Maya was already calculating. 30 minutes to understand technology that had stumped alien engineers for centuries. It should have been impossible, but she had built her entire career on doing impossible things. I need to get in there. Commander Voss stepped forward. Absolutely not. I'm not sending one of my people on a suicide mission. Sir, with respect, it's not a suicide mission if I succeed, Maya replied. And if I don't try, we're all dead anyway. The commander's jaw tightened, but he knew she was right. After a long moment, he nodded grimly. What do you need? Maya turned to Zethka. I need every piece of technical documentation you have, even the theoretical stuff your engineers dismissed. And I need a complete schematic of how these bioquantum organisms are supposed to interact with the mechanical systems. Much of that knowledge is fragmented or theoretical, Zethka warned. Fragmented is better than nothing, Maya said, already moving toward the equipment lockers. I also need the heaviest radiation suit we have, plus backup power cells and emergency oxygen. As the technicians scrambled to gather her equipment, Maya found herself staring at the reactor's pulsing core through the reinforced viewing window. The red light was growing brighter and more erratic, like a dying star's final gasps. Somewhere inside that maze of alien technology, living quantum organisms were failing, and with them, the hopes of everyone on the station. Dr. Kim appeared beside her, holding a tablet loaded with the ethereal technical data. Maya, I've been analyzing this information. The bioquantum matrix isn't just complex, it's adaptive. These organisms actually evolve their quantum states in response to environmental changes. That's why traditional repair approaches fail. Maya nodded, pieces of the puzzle beginning to fall into place. They're not just components. They're part of a living system that learns and adapts. The ethereal engineers keep treating them like machines when they should be treating them like patients. Exactly. But Maya, even understanding that, the level of interaction required to communicate with quantum organisms is beyond our current capabilities. Maya smiled grimly as technicians helped her into the bulky radiation suit. Maybe beyond our current scientific capabilities, but not beyond human ingenuity. I've spent my whole life making broken things work again. The secret isn't always understanding how something is supposed to work. Sometimes it's understanding how it wants to work. The radiation suit felt impossibly heavy as Maya approached the reactor's access hatch. Through the helmet's visor, she could see her reflection in the polished metal. Determined but scared, she activated her comm system and heard the voices of everyone watching from the observation deck. Radiation levels are spiking, Dr. Kim reported. You'll have maybe 25 minutes before we have to pull you out. Understood, Maya replied, her hand hovering over the access controls. Behind her, she could sense Zethka's presence, the alien being's confusion and curiosity bleeding through their mental connection. Why do you attempt what we could not accomplish? Zethka asked. Maya paused, considering the question. Because sometimes the best way to fix something is to stop trying to fix it the right way and start trying to fix it the way that works. With that, she activated the access hatch and stepped into the reactor's core, entering a world of swirling energy and impossible light. The bioquantum matrix surrounded her like a living cathedral, its walls pulsing with rhythms that seemed almost like heartbeats. This wasn't just technology, it was something alive, something that had been calling out for help in a language no one had bothered to learn. Maya began her work, knowing that 50,000 lives depended on her ability to speak to the impossible. The breakthrough. Inside the reactor core, Maya felt like she had stepped into the heart of a dying star. The bioquantum matrix surrounded her in layers of crystalline structures that pulsed with organic light, each beat slightly out of sync with the others. The radiation counter on her suit clicked steadily, reminding her that every second brought her closer to lethal exposure. Readings are off the charts in there. Dr. Kim's voice crackled through the comm. What are you seeing? Maya moved deeper into the maze of quantum conduits, her helmet's sensors recording everything. It's not like the schematics at all. The bioorganisms aren't just integrated with the technology. They are the technology. The mechanical parts are more like a support system. She approached what the ethereal documentation called the primary quantum nexus, a sphere of pure energy suspended between 6 crystalline pillars. As she got closer, she could see the problem immediately. 3 of the pillars showed signs of quantum decay, their light flickering weakly while the others pulsed strongly. The imbalance was tearing the entire system apart. "Zethka," Maya called through the comm. "Your engineers tried to replace the failing components, didn't they?" "Yes," came the mental response. "Standard protocol dictates replacing degraded bioquantum matrices with fresh specimens." Maya shook her head, understanding flooding through her. "That's why it never worked. You weren't treating a malfunction. You were performing surgery on a living patient without understanding what was wrong." She moved to examine the failing pillars more closely. Through her suit's advanced sensors, she could see the quantum organisms inside, their bioluminescent patterns weak and erratic. But they weren't dying randomly. They were following a pattern, responding to something. "Dr. Kim, are you seeing this data?" Maya transmitted the sensor readings back to the observation deck. "Fascinating." Dr. Kim's voice carried excitement despite the danger. "The failing organisms aren't degrading. They're adapting. They're trying to compensate for some kind of environmental change." Maya's mind raced. Environmental change. The mining station had been operating for 3 years, steadily extracting rare minerals from the planet's core. What if the extraction process had altered something fundamental about the local quantum field? "Commander Voss, I need the complete mining operation data for the past 6 months," Maya called out. "Maya, you don't have time for a full analysis," the commander replied urgently. "Radiation exposure is at 70% of your limit." "Trust me on this," Maya insisted, already connecting her tablet to the station's database through her suit's wireless link. As the data streamed in, she cross-referenced it with the quantum organism behavioral patterns. There it was. 6 months ago, they had begun deep core extraction in Sector 7, drilling deeper than ever before. The process had been incredibly successful, yielding unprecedented amounts of rare, quantum-aligned crystals. But it had also been subtly altering the planet's natural quantum field, creating resonance patterns that the bioorganisms were struggling to adapt to. "That's it," Maya breathed. "The organisms aren't failing. They're evolving. They're trying to adapt to the changing quantum environment, but the mechanical support systems can't keep up with their evolution." Even if that's true, Zethka's mental voice carried frustration. "We cannot simply modify the support systems. The engineering tolerances are too precise, the quantum mathematics too complex." Maya smiled inside her helmet. "You're thinking like an engineer. But I grew up fixing things that were never designed to work together." She began pulling tools from her kit, not the precise quantum instruments that ethereal technology demanded, but the improvised, adaptable tools that had served her well on Earth. "Maya, what are you doing?" Dr. Kim asked, alarm creeping into her voice. "Something that would probably horrify any proper engineer," Maya replied, approaching the nearest failing pillar. Instead of trying to replace or repair the quantum organisms, she began modifying the mechanical support structure around them. Using a plasma welder, she carefully reshaped the quantum field generators, allowing them to flex and adapt rather than maintaining rigid parameters. It was rough, improvised work that violated every principle of precision engineering, but Maya could see the organisms responding immediately. "The quantum resonance is stabilizing," Dr. Kim reported, amazement in her voice. Maya moved to the second failing pillar, working faster now as her radiation exposure climbed toward dangerous levels. The organisms were definitely responding to her modifications, their bioluminescent patterns growing stronger and more synchronized. "This is impossible," Zethka's mental voice carried wonder. "You are allowing the technology to evolve, rather than constraining it to original specifications. Exactly, Maya grunted, working on the final pillar. Sometimes the best way to fix something is to stop trying to control it and start helping it become what it wants to be. The plasma welder sputtered and died as she finished the last modification. Her radiation exposure was now at 95% of safe limits, and she could feel the beginning stages of radiation sickness making her nauseous. But the quantum nexus was responding beautifully. All 6 pillars now pulsed in perfect harmony, their light growing steadily brighter. The bioorganisms had adapted to the planet's changing quantum field, and Maya's modifications allowed the mechanical systems to support their evolution instead of fighting it. Quantum field containment is stabilizing across all systems, Dr. Kim reported, her voice filled with relief. Reactor output is returning to normal parameters. Maya stumbled back toward the access hatch, her vision beginning to blur from radiation exposure. Command, requesting immediate extraction for medical treatment. As the hatch sealed behind her, Maya collapsed into the waiting arms of the medical team. Through the observation window, she could see the reactor core glowing with steady, healthy light. The crisis was over. Hours later, after medical treatment and decontamination, Maya found herself in the station's conference room facing a group of very confused but grateful officials. Zethka's shimmering form occupied one corner of the room, its mental presence filled with what she had learned to recognize as alien curiosity. Your approach was completely contrary to established engineering principles, Zethka said. Yet it succeeded where our finest engineers failed for centuries. Maya leaned back in her chair, still feeling weak from radiation exposure, but satisfied with the day's work. Sometimes the established principles are the problem. Your engineers kept trying to make the reactor work the way it was originally designed. But technology, especially living technology, grows and changes. You have to let it evolve. Commander Voss shook his head in amazement. Maya, what you did in there, it shouldn't have been possible. You modified alien technology that we barely understand using improvised tools. That's the thing, sir, Maya replied with a tired smile. I didn't need to understand how it was supposed to work. I just needed to understand how it wanted to work. Dr. Kim looked up from her analysis tablet. The modifications you made are already spreading throughout the reactor's bioquantum matrix. The organisms are adapting and improving the design in real time. It's like they're upgrading themselves. This will change everything. Zethka's mental voice carried a note of reverence. For centuries, we have treated our ancient technology as sacred artifacts to be preserved unchanged. You have shown us that they were meant to grow and evolve. Word of Maya's achievement spread quickly through the galactic communication networks. Within days, reports were flooding in from other colonies and stations where similar reactor failures had been reversed using her adaptive approach. Human engineers were suddenly in high demand throughout alien space, their reputation for creative problem-solving preceding them. Maya found herself assigned to a joint task force with the Ethereals, traveling to failing installations across the galaxy. Each reactor presented new challenges, but the principle remained the same. Instead of forcing ancient technology to work within original parameters, they learned to help it evolve and adapt to new conditions. Months later, as Maya stood on the observation deck of an ethereal science vessel, watching another reactor come back to life under her guidance, she reflected on how much had changed. Humanity was no longer seen as a young, inexperienced species struggling to understand advanced alien technology. They were recognized as innovators, problem solvers who could breathe new life into systems that others had given up on. Your species continues to amaze us, Zethka said, joining her at the observation window. We spent millennia trying to preserve the perfection of our ancestors' work. You showed us that true perfection lies in the ability to grow and change. Maya smiled, watching the quantum organisms pulse with vibrant life inside their modified containment systems. We learned a long time ago that nothing lasts forever unless it can adapt. Maybe that's humanity's real gift to the galaxy, showing everyone else that it's okay to let things change. The reactor's light grew steadier and brighter, a symbol of cooperation between species and the power of human ingenuity. In the cold vastness of space, word continued to spread. When the impossible needs fixing, call a human engineer. They might not do it the right way, but they'll find a way that works. And sometimes, that was exactly what the galaxy needed.